It was the end of May, and the auditorium at Lincoln High School radiated that sticky, promising heat of early Los Angeles summer. My gown itched against my skin, sweat trickling down my neck beneath the blue cap. I clutched the paper with my valedictory speech in one hand, my fingers barely steady enough to keep it from fluttering. Rows of folded chairs stretched before me, filled by family faces and classmates, backs straight and eyes half-lidded with teenage boredom. Principal Lawson smiled, introduced me as a promising young mind, eager for the world ahead. There was nothing remarkable about the way he said it, but a tiny shiver of hope kept my back straight. I approached the podium, searching for familiar faces in the crowd, my father's weary brow, my mother's tight jaw. My older brother Tony was 2 rows back, spinning his class ring idly, smirking already. I fixed my eyes on the exit signs instead and began. I thanked teachers and friends as tradition demanded. Then, because I'd spent weeks agonizing and daring myself, I spoke of the future. My voice quivered only on the first sentence. When I was 10, I wrote a program to teach my goldfish to come to the glass for food. No one believed he actually learned, but it made me believe in possibility. I paused, the usual heat rising in my cheeks, but pressed on. Today, I dream of building machines that can not just compute but think, analyze, and learn. I want to make an artificial mind. I want to change the world with AI. It was quiet, an expectant hush. Then Tony's laugh sliced through the air, loud and cutting. It rippled through the student section, drawing more snickers. Someone in the back shouted, "Good luck with your robot army." Even a teacher giggled, then cleared her throat. I felt the laughter crawling over my skin. I tried to force the next words out, but my mouth was desert dry. I offered a weak smile, thinking if I kept going, the impact would dull. They say here in LA you have to dream big. I never finished because a technical supervisor, Mrs. Morneau, stepped forward, hand raised. "Thank you, Mia, that was inspiring. Now let's proceed to the awards." My speech cut short. My heart tripped in humiliation. I collected my diploma later, smile fixed, while Tony mouthed, "Elon Musk, huh," as I stepped off the stage. My parents hugged me tightly, proud but already working overtime to tamp down expectations. At home, the kitchen was crowded with relatives, casseroles, and the scent of fried fish. My Aunt Lupe cornered me near the fridge, drink in hand. "You know, Mija, you should try something realistic. Computers are for big companies. Why not learn accounting?" Uncle Eddie, between bites of churro, said, "What's this AI thing anyway? Like robot maids? You want to dress up as Rosie from the Jetsons?" Maury laughter. I excused myself to sit on the fire escape, listening to the party inside while the world spun quietly around me. That night in my small room, I stared at the ceiling, rage rising like a physical thing. I was furious at my family, at my brother, at the world for mocking what made me burn with excitement. I pressed my fists to my chest to hold it in. The anger was a storm inside me, but outside I showed restraint. I vowed that one day they wouldn't laugh. College was my first escape. I went to UCLA, majoring in computer science, scraping by on scholarships, work study, and constant hustle. My roommate Priya studied with a calm confidence I envied. Every night, I coded lines of neural nets and language models until my eyes burned. Some weekends, I took the 720 Metro home for family birthdays. Each return, my dream felt smaller in their house, reality seeping into my pores from every skeptical glance and polite question. At school, rejection hit too. Professors doubted my early ideas. My first attempt to get into the advanced AI seminar was dismissed with, "Your project lacks rigor, Miss Ortiz." I learned to smile, fix the code, swallow the sting. I tutored kids and delivered groceries to afford a battered old Lenovo. That laptop was my baby. When its fan coughed and stuttered, I'd soothe it. Lines of code became my therapy. I kept notes, every slight, every joke at my expense. The first time my mother asked on a call, "You sure there's work? Maybe you should switch." I didn't snap, didn't yell. I told her about the professor's projects, about self-driving cars and medical data analytics. She listened, unconvinced. I got off the phone, walked to the end of my hall, screamed silently at the vending machine, then marched back and pulled an all-nighter on reinforcement learning. Rage, contained, redirected. After graduation, jobs were scarce. The ecosystem in LA overflowed with hopefuls aiming for Google, Tesla, OpenAI. The first application I sent to a big lab bounced back, not enough experience, wrong fit. I picked up contracting work instead, annotating data, cleaning spreadsheets, writing snippets of Python for companies no one's heard of. The pay was lousy, but every failed project taught me where my code broke, where I could tweak, where I could learn. I became obsessed with edge cases, the little errors that ruined neat theoretical worlds. Every Sunday I'd call home. Grandma would implore, find a nice boy, Mia, get married, have kids. Forget the robot stuff. I watched friends from school land big offers. Tony, now in sales, called to gloat. You still doing that computer thing? AI, huh? Maybe you can automate my emails one day. I laughed, pretending it didn't grate. Inside, I felt my restraint stretching thin, but I gritted through it. Every put done was fuel. The city changed around me. Rents climbed, startups flared and died like shooting stars. I moved into a shared house in Koreatown, paying for a mattress on the floor, hacking late into the night on side projects. For years, I was always tired, always hustling, always holding tight reins on my temper. A turning point came at 2 a.m. in the brittle blue light of my laptop. I was debugging a speech recognition model for a tiny startup, Volt.ai, run by two sleep-deprived founders and a dog named Dice. My code finally worked. Tedious hours of tuning and retraining paid off. The team sent Slack fireworks. For the first time, something I'd written would actually ship, not world-changing, not yet, but it was real. My hands shook, not with rage this time, but exhausted joy. I stepped onto the tiny balcony and faced the city, neon and silent. The rage softened into resolve. From there, things began to shift. Volt.ai grew and I took on bigger projects. I learned to swallow defeat when investments fell through, when our big pitch failed and the company nearly folded. I wanted to scream at fate for stacking the deck, but I thought of that auditorium, that moment on stage when my dream was dismissed out loud, and I used the memory as steel. By 26, I'd become Volt.ai's lead engineer. I poured myself into building a scalable NLP engine, teaching computers to understand how real people speak, stutter, slip, and search. Our system got traction with a bank looking to automate fraud calls. It wasn't glamorous, but it was paying, and more crucially, it worked. I'd sit in meetings with middle-aged execs in glass towers, fielding suspicious questions, explaining how my model didn't just parse words, but sensed intent. The feeling was less rage now, more satisfaction when their skepticism faded into a grudging respect by meeting's end. Recognition came, slow and incremental. Volt.ai was acquired by a larger firm, Novatech. I received a promotion, the first substantial check of my life, and a real office. I called my parents and explained gently that I'd become chief architect at a division working with Fortune 500 companies. Silence. Then tentative pride. Still, I heard the echoes in their voices. Is it stable? Do you have healthcare now, Mija? The biggest transformation came when Novatech allowed me to hire my own team. I recruited Priya, and together we designed a language model suite that powered real-time customer assistance for healthcare providers. It sounded boring to outsiders, but to someone who knew the struggle of navigating medical bills in two languages, my mother, my grandmother, me, it meant giving people power. And yet my family still didn't really get it. Years blurred, my 20s receded in the rearview. Press features, a patent, a TechCrunch blurb. They felt like small, quiet victories, not enough to flip the narrative at home. But then, in my early 30s, Novatech's AI platform landed a city contract, revamping the public transit chatbot system for Southern California. Suddenly, my work was everywhere, riders texting on buses, checking delayed trains, asking for help late at night. My model lived in the hands of hundreds of thousands. A local TV station did a feature. They filmed us in the bright Novatech office, floor-to-ceiling windows, my face peering over a monitor. Building the brains behind your commute, a headline that felt both grandiose and a little ridiculous. My email filled with former classmates and distant family. Some asked for rides, others wanted jobs. My mother's question on our next call was simple but heavy. So, what do we tell people? What is it you do exactly? A week later, the city invited us to a ribbon cutting at the new digital training center near Union Station. Novatech reps insisted I give a small speech, shorter this time, only sound bites for the cameras. They sent cars for key team members' families. I said it wasn't necessary, people could RSVP. My mother, father, and because fate hates symmetry, Tony all decided to come. Grandma too, in her black dress and sensible shoes, arm hooked into my father's as they navigated the downtown crowd. The morning of the event was clear, California blue and cloudless. I met my family outside the bustling plaza, watching commuters cross-mingle with city officials. My parents looked dazed, blinking at the white tents and camera rigs. Tony was in his perpetual business casual, phone to ear, glancing sideways at Novatech's logo. The official from the mayor's office called me to the podium. Prudently, I kept my remarks focused on serving the city and advancing access. My voice was steady, but inside I felt the old simmer, not rage this time, but its echo. The camera's word. My mother squeezed my hand when I stepped down, her eyes shining but unsure. Then came the tour. They ushered us into the new Transit Help Center, spacious and bright, screens lining the walls with live chats in English, Spanish, Mandarin. On display was a huge dashboard tracking service queries in real time. A supervisor from the MTA pressed some buttons, and behind her a wall-sized monitor cycled through live conversations, anonymized but authentic. I watched my family's faces as the demo began. The AI took questions from a woman in Boyle Heights about an overdue tap card. It parsed her Spanglish, responded with the right forms, linked her to a human within seconds. Another query in rapid Mandarin was translated and addressed by the same model, all smooth, seamless, invisible magic. It's helping people who get confused, the supervisor explained, gesturing at the dashboard. Before our team would get overwhelmed, now we support thousands more every week. The escalation rates dropped by 60%. The Novatech VP turned to my parents. Your daughter led the team that built this. My father nodded, too quiet to reply. My mother mouthed, Oi, that's her work. She reached for my hand, awed and fierce and suddenly truly proud. Tony was watching the monitor, mouth open. That's Mia's code doing all that, for real. The supervisor nodded. It's her model behind the scenes, the language, the automatic routing, even the accessibility tools we launched last quarter. Public satisfaction is way up. Tony stepped closer, his voice genuinely hushed. Damn sis, you made this. For the first time in my adult life, I saw disbelief give way to admiration in his eyes. It felt like a glass wall shattering. They led us to smaller screens showing accessibility features, voice commands for visually impaired riders, simplified Spanish for abuela-level fluency. A city council member, overhearing my father's accented English, called me over. We owe your daughter a lot. She's made a real difference here. The weight of all my restraint, all the years of tight-lipped rage, lifted as I saw the impact radiate into their world, made tangible and irrefutable. In the car home, my mother clasped my hand, thumbs skating over my knuckles. You did good, Mija, you kept going. I heard the words she didn't say. You proved them, proved us wrong. That little seed of rage and humiliation, planted back on that graduation stage, had driven me for so long. It could have eaten me alive or left me bitter. Instead, watching Tony watch the demo, seeing my parents nod with honest pride, I felt not only the sweetness of vindication, but something gentler, the knowledge that my furious belief had found its place. I returned to Lincoln High as a guest speaker the next year. Most of my classmates were gone, their own lives scattered like confetti. The auditorium was just as stuffy, the folding chairs squeakier. I spoke quietly, not about robots or giant ambitions, but about ignoring the laughter, standing taller under the weight of dismissal. I quoted no one famous, just said, if they laugh at your dream, let it light a fire. Walk through it, make it real, not for glory, not for revenge, but for the kid you were, needing proof that hope matters. Afterwards, one girl came up, eyes wide and hopeful. Do you think a girl from here could ever build something important? I smiled, no anger, no sorrow, just calm. I know you can. The rage, after all those years, had melted down to quiet steel. When I walked outside that day, the LA sun was bright enough to sting. The city was loud, alive, a chaos of possibility, and for the first time I saw myself in it. Someone who returned not to tell them I was right, but to tell them they could be too.